playing the sport is fun, but winning is more fun.
I always compete for first place.
Going into a competition with people that they never competed against, they're going to go do some research. So I did my research, found someone, and I was like, okay, this guy's he's fairly strong. Is this man, trying to taunt me? Is he disrespecting me? What is this about? Your Subars, your Scots, and so on and so forth, they're not here to be friendly. They're here to make sure you lose. At the same time, it's unbelievable, putting on the tracksuit as a fool, the whole thing on, seeing how well it fits, I really look good in green. I didn't know green was my color, so. I am Thapelo Motlhako. I grew up in this neighborhood. This is a synonym in Johannesburg. I went to King Edward's, formerly known as Kes. From grade 1 all the way to matric, I have always been the sporty kid in the family, the athlete. Favorite sports being athletics, rugby, and basketball. That's where I really thrived in high school. I loved track and field, sprints being my main events, 100s and 200s, and rugby also. Then that is now my first love. Absolutely loved playing rugby. I wish I had the opportunity to possibly play for the first team at Kes. Sadly, I matriculated during COVID, which I guess I didn't quite get that opportunity, but absolutely loved playing rugby. Obviously, after matriculating, still having that athlete, that drive, that hunger to just participate in sports. Found myself in powerlifting, and I've been stuck, and I've fallen in love with the sport. Okay, so when it comes to the athletics, from the age of 6, I was always just doing laps in the house, up and down, just sprinting, because I just absolutely loved that freedom of moving as fast as I possibly could. Loved it to bits. And obviously then moving into school, the teachers could see, I had really good potential, and they did their level best to, improve my skills in sprinting. So being in primary school, being the fastest kid in my grade, I really took that for granted. Then moving into high school, one of, if not the biggest sports in school in South Africa, you really find the top dogs. So I ended up finding some guys who were just as fast and much faster than I was, which I think was awesome, because then I always had something to work towards in terms of improving, because that's one thing that's awesome about track and field. If you're in a race with people who aren't necessarily keeping up with you, you don't end up giving 110%. Just like in the long distance races, you've got pacemakers. I would see the guys who are ahead of me as pacemakers. One of the guys that I would race against throughout high school, his name is Sean Maswangani, who has competed for South Africa in the Olympics twice now, which is just an insane thought that I was running with this guy in high school. But I didn't obviously take the athletics as far as I could have, but it was an insane experience. It really was. That is 100% correct. I'm still a very competitive person. So obviously playing or doing sports such as athletics, track and field, and rugby, which are two very competitive sports. You're on the racetrack. The goal is to finish first. Regardless of who the competition is, the goal is to finish first. As well as playing rugby. It is a very physical, very aggressive sport. And one mentality that I've always had is playing the sport is fun, but winning is more fun. Winning is so much more fun. Yes, you learn a lot in your losses and your defeats, and you've got to be humble enough to take the L when it's served to you, which obviously I've had my fair share of L's. But you really learn a lot when you take those L's, and you really learn to love winning a lot more. So that's where my competitive nature has really come from. So obviously leaving those two sports behind, being athletics and rugby, which I miss dearly. If I could go back, I genuinely would. But matriculating, falling in love with gym, and finding that my strength could skyrocket with powerlifting, and I can continue with that competitive nature, it was a win-win for me. I could give 110%. I was strong, and I could compete. So I fell in love, and I've been stuck since. I had only done one SPD before that day, and I think that was one of my biggest mistakes, because as I was going through my training, I 100% based how the comp was going to be off of that very slow 3.5 hour SPD, where the conditions were perfect. I was, at home. I was with the people that I'd been training with for months. Obviously, after making that decision to start competing, I was really locked and focused on my training, and the prep went insanely well. Come competition day, I was, the nerves started hitting once I woke up in the morning. We obviously get to the venue. It's now time to start warming up, and started questioning, okay, what is about to happen? Because this is the first meet I've ever been to. I have no clue how it actually works. And the squats went well. Bench was a little bit shaky because fatigue started hitting in, and by the time deadlifts came, I was finished. I was laying on the floor. I was telling one of my friends, Dad, you know what, I'm never doing this again. I don't want to do this. My body's sore. I'm cramping everywhere. I'm hungry. I'm tired. Complaints after complaints after complaints. And I was ready to really just call it a day. Obviously, that didn't happen. I ended up completing deadlifts with a 245 deadlift. That was absolutely amazing for me to go to my first competition and win a gold, which to me was insane. It really was insane. But the competition was tough. It was really, really difficult. It did challenge me mentally, but I thank God that I was able to get through. Insanely motivating, unbelievably motivating. That how things, Jean ended up cramping an insane amount. Again, remember, this is my first competition. He, going into deadlifts, he warmed up to 120, hands were cramping, back was cramping, hamstring was cramping. He then jumped straight to the platform when he called his name and pulled the 240, which to me makes no sense how someone can go from their last warm-up being 120 to then 15 minutes later, you're having to now pull 240 off the ground, which he somehow managed to do. So for me, that was a huge motivator. I started to look at powerlifting and say, okay, you know what, this sport is for me, because I am a hard worker. I am very goal orientated, and when I set my mind on something, it's really hard for me to pull out of it with no good reason, just because I'm tired and I'm sore, and the first competition didn't necessarily feel as if I thought it would, there's no chance that I wasn't going to do essays because I was too deep in, as as people like to say, So training with the likes of Jean, Chris, and Dan, who I've always known them to be hard workers, really motivated me to also give 110%. Because when I came into the gym, I also had to keep that standard or level that people knew me at. That person who's walking in and who's going to be the hardest worker in the room. And that's why.
So you go to your first comp, go to Gauteng, leave with a 245 deadlift. You have a look at it, you look around, you're like, maybe I can do something at nationals.
Yeah.
So you get to nationals, and there you are you meet Suvar. I think you see him lifting for the first time at nationals.
Yes.
Alongside Suvar, you Scottish strength, Scott. And then you also get there. So what was the difference in the realization as to what was going on between your Gauteng qualifiers and your nationals comp? Because I'm sure you were like, what is going on here?
So anybody who's going into a competition that they've never going into a competition with people that they've never competed against, they're going to go do some research. So I did my research, I found Subar, and I was like, okay, this guy's he's fairly strong. Come competition day, he moved barely no weight on the platform. And I started questioning, is this man, trying to taunt me? Is he disrespecting me? What is this about? Obviously, very inexperienced. I didn't quite understand the thing of going into qualifiers, taking it very easy just so you can continue your prep, moving into nationals much easier. So I took it as a little bit of disrespect. And obviously, yet again, I had no clue what this man was prepping for essays. Moving into essays, obviously, then I saw Scott on the list, Scott Pons, and I went and I found his Instagram page, and I was like, wow, you know what? I'm going into a competition that I have no guarantee that I'm going to win. Zero guarantee. Neither do I have the knowledge of who the other lifters are. So I was really walking in blind, not knowing who was who in the zoo, and I was gonna just give myself 110%. But I knew deep down inside, I was not competing to not get a podium finish. 100%. I knew that was what I need. That's what I want. That is the goal. I don't care where anybody else finishes. Obviously, now getting there to essays, again, my inexperience showed. I didn't think that all those small increments, moving obviously from squat to bench to deadlift, would make such a big difference to the total. Whereas the entire time, I'm thinking I'm knocking on the door of these two guys who were miles ahead. Obviously, Subar going to break the national record for, I think it was total, squat, and bench. And then Scott going to go break the national record for deadlifts. I genuinely thought that I was good competition, whereas they completely obliterated the rest of us. But yet again, I didn't take that L or that defeat harshly. I took it on the chin and I was like, okay, you know what? It's time to really step my game up. I really want to walk in here next time, and people must know, okay, I need to worry about him, So that was essentially how essays went for me, mindset-wise, in terms of my competitors. So, oh man, it's been an exciting process. So, and a very emotional one, filled with aggression. Because the one thing about lifting heavy, you need to come with some level of aggression. If the goal is to move as heavy weights as possible, and you need to have that mindset of this weight is moving no matter what. So planning my prep, moving into Gauteng and essays, I knew Scott was going to be my main priority. So what I ended up doing was I drew up numbers or prep to try and either keep up with what he was doing at the time, which obviously he exceeded that by far. But so far, he also made a huge jump. But what that did for me is it made me work so hard and enjoy the process so much more because of how well I was progressing. Moving into that prep, I had tendonitis on one elbow, and then 2 weeks later, after it healed, I then got it in the next elbow. So I went about a month and a half of really struggling to use my forearms and obviously my shoulders. So squat, bench, and deadlift, everything really took a major hit, especially my grip. So my grip was my main focus moving into Gauteng's, and obviously now understanding that qualifiers is more for fun, or really just to get into essays. I really enjoyed my Gauteng's. I was laughing with everybody. It was just a vibe. It really was just a vibe, So after that, it was time to lock in. 5 weeks before getting into essays, and obviously at that moment I knew, okay, there are 3 international competitions that are coming up, and I need to make sure that I, on top of finishing, getting a podium finish, and just obviously applying some pressure on Scott, make sure that I get my SA colors, so I have that opportunity to compete for SA. And I really wanted it because from a young age, I always knew that whatever I'm going to do, I want to do it at the best of my ability and at the highest level. And obviously in South Africa, the highest level you can be at is to compete for your country, which, I was blessed enough to get to that point. So obviously finishing 3rd at SAs, competition was very tight throughout the 74s. As my last year as a junior, I got my national colors, and now obviously you tell family and friends, and they are all in shock. They're like, wow, he's a South African athlete now. He's going to go and stand there like a springbok, as I like to say, because I felt like a springbok singing the national anthem. So it's really just been a blessing, shocking those around me who I don't want to say they didn't believe that it was possible, but I don't think many people knew that I had the potential to get to the point where I am able to compete for South Africa. I remember the morning that I got the email saying that your tracksuit is going to arrive today. I was waiting here at the gym by the door the entire morning. The whole morning I'm waiting for my tracksuit to come. The man brings the box. I open it as slowly as possible because obviously, the energy is rushing through the body. The body is buzzing, but you want to stay nice and composed. I pulled the tracksuit out, I looked at the jacket, and I swear I was almost in tears. And I was ready to start jumping. I put it on very quietly. I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, yeah, I did it. It's massive, to get to the point where you are able to compete for your country. Genuinely, it is huge. So I did not take it for granted. I am so very humble about the experience, but at the same time, it's unbelievable, putting on the tracksuit as a fool, the whole thing on, seeing how well it fits, I really look good in green. I didn't know green was my color. So yeah, it was an insane experience. It really was. My mom watched my essays last year, and last year at essays, what sadly ended up happening at the end of my deadlifts, I passed out because my breathing technique before deadlifting was completely off. I would breathe out 1,000,000 times, take a deep breath for my brace, and then lift the weight. Obviously, with barely any oxygen in the body, taking smelling salts at the time, it really completely finished me. Dropping the weight, passed out, got home, and my mom was insanely worried. She was like, "You cannot be lifting weights like this. What is wrong with you? What if you get hurt? You're scaring me," and so on and so forth, which obviously I completely understand. And I am so grateful that my mom, cares enough to worry about me when I'm in such difficult situations. But at the same time, I really wanted to show them that, look, I've got so much potential in the sport. I can really push this sport to a point where I can be the best. That is everybody's mindset. You always want to believe that you can be the best, and you always want to work as if you are working towards being the best, So obviously, my parents being so excited that I finished third in South Africa, and I told them, look, I'm getting my tracksuit today. When I showed it to them, they were so excited. My dad was so excited for me. He was congratulating me. He told everybody at church, he's like, look, my son is competing for South Africa. Which, it as humble as I am about it, it really is a big thing. And I really am so grateful for their support. My mom was, when I showed it to my mom's first reaction was, it was just an amazing experience sharing that with them. It really was. My dad did do bodybuilding rather, when he was younger, around my age, and he did compete. So obviously his son's now growing up. Somebody is going to follow in his footsteps, and it was me, and I'm so grateful for it. I've got no regrets being here in a community where I just lift. It is so much fun. I love it so much. So I am so grateful for my dad, introducing me into gym. I think one of the first things he did for me, gym-wise, was, and my parents are always reminding me about this, when I was 6, I was just doing push-ups in the lounge. That was my favorite thing to do. In the lounge, sets of 10 push-ups, and after 10 push-ups, I'm doing 10 sit-ups. 30-second break. 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups. My dad just, he really pushed me, or he saw how much I loved it. He ended up buying me a set of weight for my 16th birthday, which I cherished so much. I learned so much about exercise and gym from him, from the internet, and obviously my own experiences. So my dad did have a major influence into me getting into weightlifting. When it comes to training, my mom used to put these kickboxing tapes in the VHS in the lounge, and when I was really young, I would always just rush in early in the morning to join her, and I would just make a conscious effort to do whatever I was seeing, on the TV. So I've just always been that kid who wanted to be active, who wanted to do a sport, whether it was exercise, kicking a ball around, and so on and so forth. So obviously last year, again, with my inexperience going into essays, I'm thinking that cool, everybody's going to be friendly, just like at Gauteng. Everyone's going to just have a laugh. We're all going to warm up together. It's going to be fun. We're all going to support each other when it's time to go lift. Was I not wrong? Getting to Poch, seeing the guys that I was or going in, lining up for weigh-ins, everybody is serious. Everybody's looking angry. Everybody's looking like, okay, you know what, I'm here to dominate. And I'm walking in with my big smile, greeting people, wondering why is everyone, so cold at the moment. Going into warm-ups, you're not even sure who to warm up with, who do I speak to, who do I share a bar with, because everybody is so focused on doing their own thing. Understandably so, So moving into this year, seeing my competitors, obviously number one being Scott, who was my main focus, I completely understood why it is so hostile or cold during warm-ups. because everybody really wants to do their best. Everybody is just focusing on, at the moment, what's important, which is warming up properly, making sure you're hydrated, and getting the weights off the floor. Nothing else matters. Nobody else matters. I see my competitor, I don't care, I'll see you at the platform. You know, and I really learned that at SAs last year, and taking that mindset into SAs this year, a little bit different, because at the same time, I'm such a friendly person. So if somebody wants to have a conversation with me, I will never shy away from it. But one thing I didn't do was I didn't start conversations. Obviously, because everybody's serious, even me, I must be serious. On top of being serious, it really does help to just stay locked in and focused in the moment, because your competitors are not now your Subas, your Scots, and so on and so forth. They're not here to be friendly. They're here to make sure you lose. So you need to make sure that at the same time, as they're having that mindset, you need to come in with the same mindset, if not harsher.
And yourself as well. And you want to play a local player. So if you had to choose a rugby player and assign a rugby player to each one of those elements, who would you assign? Who?
So obviously, starting with myself, I came into the scene out of nowhere. So if I were to compare myself to a rugby player who is flourishing right now, Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu.
I'm Sash to my mates, and Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu to you guys.
Into reverse, Feinberg and Ngomazulu, stepping three players.
This player is unbelievable, isn't he? The footwork, phenomenal.
Is storming off for the ball. It's play on from Van Wyk, who's looking for a second try. Gets all that away to Van der Sant, and that is a massive tackle.
The agents from Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu.
Ruben for me would be Sia Kolisi, because they both went through some really difficult injuries, you know. Sia obviously going through a torn ACL and a number of knee injuries, where his recovery time was supposed to be 9 months, where it ended up only being 6. And his first game that he stepped into was an international game, and he really just surprised everybody. He really shocked the world. Just like what Ruben did, he went through a really, really difficult knee injury, and what he's done now, I think, in terms of recovering from that injury and surpassing his previous numbers, has shocked myself, and I'm sure a number of other people, because he really has come far.
Gazzotti. Oh, Lesgorg. Has he got the pace to get past the man? Needs to get the ball out. What options has he got? Mustan was there. That's been picked up. Look at what Khaleesi does. That is absolutely incredible. Didn't really look around to see if he had anybody around him, Lesgorg, and then afterwards, look what Khaleesi does.
15.
Towards the tail from Bongi Mbanambi, and again Sia Kolisi is up wide and collapses in to Robbie Henshaw, who stays down.
With Suba, because obviously I only met him coming into my first year of powerlifting, so for me, in my weight and age category, he was the OG. He was the person who was there for a long time, you know, dominating things. So for me, I would compare him to either Beast and Tamarera or Irvin Etebe, who both have played for a very long time. Obviously, Irvin at the moment getting most caps for South Africa.
Yeah. Super Rugby player for South Africa.
Every step of the way, and they might get a chance here to bounce it out a little more.
I'm a true champion.
So for me, Richie Mwanga. Strictly Richie Mwanga, because Richie Mwanga for me is the best 10. Best 10 in the world. Obviously, there's room for argument with that. Many people would love to disagree. But when Richie Mwanga steps into a rugby field, he dominates. You know, he makes that field his. Just like Scott, especially what he did this year. He took the powerlifting scene by storm. I think everybody knows him for a 74 who squatted over 230, benched over 160, and deadlifts over 290.
Down the short side.
Offside, little chipper here from Moanga. Falls into the hands of Jordan. Richie Moanga to step, losing his footing. But punching the ball, and he's in.
And then let's talk about the lovely 83 kilogram class, which is coming in hot next year, if I can say the least. What before we go there, actually, I think one thing I would have liked to see, because Scott is pulling big numbers, right? But he did come second to Suva, and we don't know what would have happened had they both been juniors in this year. And I think, you know, the word on the street is you gotta go head to head with the guy who beat you last. So I think it would actually be very interesting and entertaining if Scott went to the 83s and battled it out with everyone, including the existing champion like Jean as well. What do you make of, you know, the 83s now, and the number of people who have decided that they're going to the 83s, including Suva, who's gone to the 83s now and is making a comeback, which will be his first comp as an open. What do you make of that?
I think it's going to be insane. I think it's going to be an amazing competition. We've got guys, as you've said, the likes of Suva, Jean, Dan, who's now coming back into the IPF, who I know very well, is going to give great competition. We've got Ruben going up, you know, we've got Chad over there. There are a lot of people in that 83s that are going to compete for podium finishes, and it's going to be the most entertaining flight, guaranteed. Most entertaining flight at SAs. I put money on it. You know, everybody's coming in hot, everybody's coming in really, really strong. Obviously, Suba coming back from a back injury and now picking up weight is just going to do him so much good. Obviously, if Scott were to put on that little bit of extra weight, I think he would give so much competition to everybody else, because his numbers are genuinely unbelievable for a 74. Seeing him with an extra 6-7 kilograms, you know, competing there with competing there with Jean, Suba, and the rest of the guys, it would be absolutely insane. So it would be very exciting if Scott would move up and, you know, just have that final battle with, or another battle with Suba to really just see who's who in the zoo. But at the same time, the 83s are going to be insane. The existing champs, yeah. I think it's been an absolutely beautiful process, you know, from coming out of a school like King Edward's, where, you know, huge sporting school. I was also in the sporting scene at the school. I always have been a competitive person, you know. So finding a sport like powerlifting where I was able to continue that, I think, was an insane blessing. You know, like we said earlier, it's not a sport that you kind of grow up in, or it's easy to find. But I found somewhere where I really felt like where I can excel, and I feel like I belong here. You know. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure.
All right, so when Taps was walking the gym, it was actually this is actually a funny story. He came out of nowhere. He came to inquire about the gym, and I was currently training. And when I'm training, I'm a bit, I want to use the word hostile, and I almost gave off like an unfriendly vibe, which wasn't like my intention. But he never took it to heart. He just understood that, okay, this guy is busy. But he came back, and he came back, kept on coming back, and then started to inquire, started to ask questions. And me having been in the sport already, I also had somebody who walked me into powerlifting. His name is Coach Nick. He took me by the hand and really ushered me into what powerlifting really is. And I just saw that as an opportunity to just give back, to help another guy who has a lot of potential in order for him to find his feet and, you know, dive in the swimming pool as well. And he's just been showing up ever since. And I think I've told him as well that like his potential was really, really high. It's still very high, actually probably higher than mine. And I told him straight to his face, I mean, dude, you have a lot more potential to make it further than I have. And it's good to see that he's taking those steps in order to make that a reality. So it's just been a joy and a privilege to see him exceeding into what I believed he could always achieve. So yeah, so it's just been a joy to help him out to get where he is at this current moment. I mean, as a coach, you always want to see your athletes or the people that you train progressing. And I had no doubt from the start that he was going to make a lot of progress, because you can see someone when you have that hard work ethic, and you can see when someone is faking it. One way or the other, you're going to be weeded out if you're not naturally that way. So I wasn't surprised to see him progressing, but knowing that he would and actually seeing it happening in real life, it's an amazing feeling, because you get to impact in someone's life and then just take the baton and then run with it, you know? So it's been amazing to see that he actually took that on, took that advice, wasn't cocky, wasn't like, oh, I'm strong already, or I already know how to do ABC. He listened and humbled himself, and he took upon himself to actually listen to like the advice that I knew and that I gave, that I shared with him, and he ran with it. And I don't know everything, you know, but what I knew and what I know, I just imparted into him, and he took heed of that and make the most of it. So it felt really amazing, you know. Probably doesn't do justice for me to use the word amazing, because like those feelings, those emotions, when you're coaching on a day, it's like it's more stressful for more than an athlete as opposed to be a coach. I felt more anxious just watching and coaching him versus when I competed, which was actually quite weird to experience. But seeing that was actually quite nice and amazing to witness. So yeah, felt amazing in short. I am staying in 83. I'm currently in a bit of a weird spot with like where my body weight is standing. I'm bouncing between like 86, like 87, 88. So it's like I'm like the middle child that's in the way it fits, you know, and I feel like it's better for me to stay in 83s, only because I have about 5-6 years experience in that weight class. And also, if I'm being very honest with myself, I don't have quite the numbers yet to compete for first place in 93s, and I always compete for first place. That's always been my mindset. It's like, if you're not competing for first place, I'm going home, you know? And I hear the whole saying of like, you have to compete for yourself, it's you versus you. I get that, but me, what drives me is like knowing that I can beat everybody else. And that's just how I feel. That's just that's the motivation I use in order for me to keep training and keep improving. So if I can't compete for first place, not podium, first place, then I'd rather not do it. So for that reason, I'm staying 83s, simply because I have the experience there, and it's easy for me to cut down to 83s versus to put on weight for 93s, because I've always been, naturally, I'm a scrawny kid. I've always been a scrawny and short kid. I just picked up height, but I've always been a skinny kid. So it's easy for me to like lose 3-4 kilos like this versus putting on 3-4 kilos like this. So for those three main reasons, I decided to stay in 83 and battle out there with the other guys. I do keep an eye on the guys, to be honest. But to be honest with you, I'm not really worried about what anybody else is doing. Although I do compete for first place, I just worry about my own journey, and I have a goal, and it's just tunnel vision. And I'm actually just excited as well to have that kind of like battle again, because the last time we had like a battle like that was back in 2022. We had Arno, we had Marlon, we had Lee, it was amazing. We had, Chris Fauger, like it was amazing. It was a battle like, you get your lift, I get my lift. Everybody was going 1 for 1, you know? So I'm excited to have that kind of battle again, and I'm looking forward to it.